Let's talk matters renewable energy now, and I'm joined by Erica Chola, who is the Marketing Director for Delight Solar. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Abby, for having me here.
Well, looking at renewable energy in many countries across Africa, it's still yet to be fully embraced. There's over-reliance on hydropower, and fewer people are going towards geothermal, solar, wind. I mean, where is the issue? Because why is the uptake not as much as we should anticipate?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think there are a couple of parameters that affect specifically uptake. I think what had happened at the onset of solar, when it first came into the continent, it was believed to be a premium product for high-end customers, so there was a barrier to participate within the category. But players like ourselves, Delight, who was one of the pioneers in terms of solar energy at a consumer level, have brought in what we call a pay-as-you-go solution. So basically what happens is a customer pays a minimal deposit of about $25 or $30, and thereafter they're required to pay a daily, weekly, or monthly amount. So what we're trying to do is reduce the barriers to access so that the average consumer can access solar energy. And so those are the barriers. So the thing is around how do we scale? How do we make these propositions more prevalent in the African continent?
All right. And looking at the big picture, Eric, of course, it is perceived that solar costs have been having a huge control on consumers when it comes to acquisition, the setup costs, and of course how fast you can recoup your investment. How true is this when it comes to the cost of eventually installation?
So you're pretty right. So I think the industrial cost when you talk about larger players, but in the sector which we play, which is what I call the mid-tier to lower consumer segment, the acquisition costs are, for us is about $30, which is about the cheapest in the market, specifically in Kenya. It's about 3,000 shillings, to be precise. So acquisition cost has been reduced. We've simplified the technology to almost a plug and play. So the average customer who has had any interaction with a basic, radio, or has had interaction with a basic consumer handset, today can easily plug and play, access the facility, and then use flexible payment methodology to acquire the product. So really trying to step the game in terms of up the ante, in terms of increasing and making sure that it's pervasively available to a very wide cross-section of consumers who in the past had no access.
All right. And right now, there is that proposal to have buildings be installed with solar if you have a 3-bedroomed house and above. And this was a policy that was mooted in 2012 by the ERC. And right now it's almost 5 years because it had a 5-year window for it to be implemented. And I was actually having a conversational chat with the ERC Director General, Oimeke, earlier today in the morning. And he does say that uptake hasn't been that good. Perhaps what can be done differently?
I think one of the key things is really around enforcement. I think it's how particularly industry players lobby with government to work in a tripartite to make sure that these things are enforceable. I think today what has happened is industry, in terms of energy industry, is working on its own. The industrial guys are working on their own. Housing is working on their own. And there's just a lack of a consortium of people coming together to particularly address this issue. So I think if the bodies are brought together, then we can see a particular uptake and a significantly higher level of compliance.
All right. And what's your outlook for the market really in Kenya and the greater East Africa?
So Kenya is a very substantive market for us. It's a market we've been in for the last 7 years, and it's a market that will continue to grow for us. But more importantly, when you look at it from a regional standpoint, we recently launched our new product, the X850, which is a solar home system plus entertainment with a 19-inch TV, radio, torch, 4 bulbs, and a tube light. We launched that actually yesterday in Uganda. And so Uganda is going to be even a bigger market in the future for us. That's largely driven by the fact that when you look at the amount of electrification available to consumers, in Uganda, I talk about 21% on average. In Kenya, it's about 50%, so a much higher uptake, and that's largely been driven by government. But these two markets still remain largely underserved, and the particular consumer segment that we address for a long time still probably may not be able to access the grid.
All right. So basically, you're saying there's enough cake for all the players.
This is enough cake for everyone.
All right.
Yes.
Many thanks, Eric Achola, for breaking this great insights on this program. We've been speaking there to Eric Achola, who is the marketing director at Delight Solar, just giving us some interesting